You're watching The Business of Law, brought to you by Bloomberg Law and the ABA Journal. I'm Lee Pacquiao. Earlier this week, law firm Weil Gotshal announced a substantial restructuring, laying off 7% of the firm's associates and a number of staff. They are also reducing compensation for some of the firm's partners. Joining me now to sort through what this all means for the firm and the rest of Big Law, we have Bruce MacEwen, law firm consultant and publisher at Adam Smith Esquire. Welcome.
Pleasure to be back.
Good to see you. So, 60 associates, 110 staffers, and, quote, meaningful compensation adjustments, unquote. We knew something like this was coming from somewhere in Big Law for quite some time, but still, when it happens, it's shocking and unpleasant. What do you make of Weil's move?
Well, the thing that struck me about Weil's move is it was obviously the result of a serious, thoughtful, reflective process. This was not a knee-jerk, panicky reaction to anything. I mean, Barry Wolf, the executive partner, said in the announcement, if we thought things were going to change in the next year or so, we wouldn't be doing this. Mm-hmm. They were clearly looking at excess capacity, on the order of 5 or 10%, and that's just an unhealthy situation for any business.
Right, and it's worth noting the law firm did not need to go public with this. It's not something that necessarily big law firms necessarily jump into doing.
Good point. That was a point of hygiene that I actually admired a lot.
Yeah.
Whether the memo was released publicly or leaked purposefully, they clearly went public with it, and I think other firms could take a lesson, frankly.
Is this a restructuring more about Weil Gotshal's particular financial situation, or is this more indicative of something that's happening in the big law space in general?
I think it's the industry. Barry, categorized it as the new normal. I've obviously used the term growth is dead. Dan DiPietro of Citi, who has his pulse on these things, from a quantitative standpoint, said, he estimates 8 to 10% overcapacity. Clients have changed their behavior. Econ 101, the supply and demand curves have shifted for keeps, I think.
It's an epic shift. So you think at the end of the day, Weil's ahead of the curve here and is ultimately going to be okay?
Very much ahead of the curve. In fact, whether they'll be okay, I think to the contrary, this makes them stronger.
Yeah, it's interesting. When we look back at some of the big law firm layoffs going all the way back to 2008, sometimes it's difficult to tell if a firm is restructuring out of a position of strength, like Cadwalader did in 2008. They came out swimmingly from that episode, or if it's being done almost out of a sense of rushed panic. Is there a reliable way to tell in the moment at the time which of the two scenarios is unfolding, or is this more of something where time will tell?
Well, time always tells, right? But I really think there are two things that I look at that give you a pretty good insight into why this is happening and whether it's from strength or weakness. The first is it responsive to the market dynamics, or does it kind of smell like it's internally driven by partner expectations or whatever? This appeared to be truly driven by market dynamics. There were targeted cuts in complex commercial litigation groups in Houston and Boston. And so one is is it response to market dynamics, internal or external? The second is whether it's just looks like a reflex kind of across the board kind of thing, or whether it has some strategic plausibility to it. Is it really going to make the firm better?
These issues are so difficult for law firms because you have so many stakeholders in the near-term financial performance, people that are directly involved in the decision-making process. How do you structure a law firm so that the negative effects of partners' immediate self-interest minimized? Is that impossible, or is that just part and parcel with having a law firm?
It's a brilliant question. I'm critical of firms and partners for having a very short-term mentality. Look at their balance sheet. There's no retained earnings line, right? People want to strip the balance sheet of cash at the end of every year. We need to realize that these are institutions which are developed over decades, even generations. There should be more of an investment mentality, less of a consumption mentality. If you look at corporate America, every corporation, no matter how stable, mature an industry it's in, has some kind of R&D budget. What a concept for a law firm to have a little tiny R&D budget. They need to have a feeling of stewardship, leaving this place better than they found it. It's sadly lacking.
Right. That's, how do I want to phrase this? Is that a concept that used to be prevalent in big law and just simply doesn't exist anymore? And now when I'm asking this question, it's something where we might have to go back decades to find it, because I certainly have never seen anything like it.
This may be one of those rare moments when I wish I were older. I might be able to actually answer the question if I were older. I mean, certainly that's the received wisdom, that there was a halcyon era when that was very much the case, and you were a creature of the institution. You realized, as opposed to thinking, everybody thinking they're A-Rod, understanding, wait a minute, you're talking about the Yankees here. They've been around for quite a while. You owe them something. I think the only thing that might get us back to that era, if it was a golden era, Lee, is more pain. And frankly, a recognition that what we have been doing with this extreme short-termism may not turn out so well.
We're already seeing something of a follow-on effect here from what Weil did earlier this week. Some firms are also starting to announce some cuts. Yep. Firms love to use moments like this as a moment to cover for some of their own house cleaning. How many more firms do you suppose will make cuts like this while it's still fresh in the news? Are we going to see a repeat of 2008, 2009 in your opinion?
I don't see 2008, 2009 again. That was an enormous shock to the system, and we actually squeezed a lot of excess capacity out very quickly. If you go back and look at the numbers, as I've done, almost all the significant layoffs happened in the first quarter of 2009, and of course the shocks to the financial system were September 2008. So that was a pretty quick reaction, actually, for lawyers. It's not going to be like that again. What I would look for in the short term is how many firms seem to be doing it before the window slams shut on their fingers, so to speak, while this is still fresh, and how many are doing it in a considered way that clearly was the result of some sort of thoughtfulness about how the firm's posture needs to change in relation to the new market dynamics.
Really interesting times to be talking about this space. Bruce, I have
really
a feeling we're going to be doing this all year at least.
I don't see an immediate end to it, Lee.
All right. Well, we're going to have you on again soon for sure.
Good
Bruce,
deal.
thanks for stopping by.
My pleasure.
That's Bruce MacEwen, law firm consultant and publisher at Adam Smith Esquire. If you'd like to learn more about the issues we just discussed, be sure to go check out our offerings on BloombergLaw.com and also on the Bloomberg Terminal. You can see more of our videos on YouTube, and you can follow our updates, of course, on Twitter. I'm Lee Pacquiao. Thanks for watching.